All right, welcome everybody who's joining in. We've got a special guest tonight on the Swing Angry Live show. We're going to bring in Robert Kravitz in just a moment. He is at Parrott Academy. He is the baseball coach there, and he's also got some administrative duties at the high school level that he's working on. Multiple state championship coach. Looking forward to hearing about his journey in the game and just learning from him and his experiences. And he's going to share with you guys tonight. So we're getting ready to bring Robert Kravitz on in just a second. So we're going to give it about 15, 20 more seconds for some people to jump on, and then we'll bring Robert right in and we'll get going. All right, welcome, Robert. Thanks for jumping on, man. It's good to have you back on the show and get going and tell us about your experiences and how you've changed and grown as a coach, your playing career and all that. So for those of you who don't know, Robert used to coach me back in the day. I'm getting old, so it's probably been almost 2 decades ago now
Yeah,
since
it's been a while.
since he coached me. So. Robert's at Parrott Academy, head baseball coach, administrative duties with the upper school at Parrott Academy in Kinston, North Carolina. Multiple state championships, high school state championships in baseball, and he's got a couple of state championships in football as an assistant coach. So, Robert, I'm just going to let you go ahead and kind of tell people your background as it relates to like where you're from, your playing experience, and after your playing career ended, your journey through coaching the game.
Yeah. First of all, man, I appreciate you having me on the show, Brandon. Love the book. Love the book. I've read some. I haven't read all of it. I told you I would, but I've read most of it, and I enjoy it. I like it. So I appreciate you having me, man. I'm originally from Virginia Beach, Virginia. Never played the game of baseball growing up. I think I was actually listening to you speak maybe a couple days ago, or I heard it somewhere. I never played organized sports until I was a sophomore in high school. But my dad played baseball, actually made it to the minor leagues. So I grew up around the game, played it with my friends all the time. And I think, was it you talking about how you got in 100 swings with your friends in the backyard and how competitive you guys may have been or something like that? Now where kids are lucky to get 3-4 at bats a game, and they're paying for all these lessons that may or may not benefit them. As a youngster growing up, I never played organized ball, but we played it all the time in the backyard. So I learned the game on the sandlot, if you will. So I moved to Bertie County, North Carolina. So from Virginia Beach to Bertie County, which was a big culture shock. My freshman year was a big adjustment, meeting new people. My mom was actually ill during that time as a freshman. So sports was definitely not an option for me. It was more of staying at home, kind of taking care of my little brother type deal while my stepdad worked, 12-hour shifts. So when mom got well, that was actually the summer before my sophomore year. I decided, you know what, I'm going to play football. I'm going to play baseball. And I excelled at both. But football by far is my favorite sport. But baseball, I had more success. I knew there was more of a future because a 5'7" quarterback. Not too many people look for those guys. But I played at Bertie High School under Coach Randy Whitaker, and learned a lot from him as a player. I think one thing that a lot of people didn't realize about Coach Whitaker is he was an excellent game manager. I thought that practices were well organized. He could manage a game, situational baseball. I thought he was very good at. I learned a lot from him, and then from there, Played 4 years, 4-year starter at Elizabeth City State University under Terrence Whittle, who's now at Stillman College down in I think it's in Alabama. Learned a lot from him. Man, he was, I thought, the baseball guru. To this day, he and I talk all the time, and he taught me so much more, about baseball than I could ever imagine. Just his knowledge and what he brought to his players, and the caring. You could tell that he loved his players. And to me, to that day, is one of the reasons why I still keep in touch with him. So the 4 years at Elizabeth City were the greatest years of my life. Had opportunity to play overseas in a tournament over there that he helped get me involved in. Actually had an opportunity to stay over there and play pro ball, but did not. And then from there, after graduation, which was kind of crazy, I left a developmental psychology exam. It was my last exam, my senior year, and I'm walking out, and I get a phone call from my agent. Not that I was like some pro guy or anything else like that. I actually had an agent that Coach Whittle had hooked me up with to try to find out what other possibilities there were, for guys who wanted to continue their career that weren't good enough to get drafted or anything like that. And got an opportunity to play in the independent league for the Florence Freedom, which I think they're now called the Florence Y'alls. Everybody has those weird names now.
Yeah.
But Chris Sabo was actually my coach for about a day before he got fired. And then, Chris Sabo was an infielder for the Reds in the 80s, 90s. And then Tom Browning, who was a pitcher for the Reds, came in and filled that spot. And it was such an eye opener. They were an expansion team in the Frontier League. They were building a new stadium, a new complex. So we actually practiced at the facilities at Miami of Ohio, of all places. And we would practice from 9 in the morning until 6 in the evening, and we would get one long break, around lunchtime, and we literally got a sandwich, a banana, a pack of nabs, and a Coke or water every day. But it was awesome because being there, learning a lot, but also you understand why guys are as good as they are, because it's pro ball, but it's not major league ball. And these guys that I was playing with were phenomenal. I thought, wow, these are some of the best guys I've ever played with. And I was playing second base, and you would turn double plays. You would just do double play feeds for 2 hours at a time. And it just becomes second nature. So I was there. I was there for 4 games before I was released. I was released, sent home with a bunch of gear and a check. Told me good luck. No hard feelings. We actually had a roster set, and we were leaving the hotel one morning, and standing in the front lobby was this good-looking, probably 6'3", 6'4", just specimen of a dude who had just been released from a major league affiliate and joined the team. And just looking at the guy, everyone knew, oh yeah, this dude's a stud. Like if he could play like he looks, somebody's going home. And when we found out he was a third baseman, we knew an infielder was going home. So I kind of had it in the back of my mind, like, man, if I don't ball out this last game, it could be me, which is kind of crazy because in that game I was 2 for 4. And after the game, they called me into the office and they released me. But it was, no hard feelings, humbling for sure. I drove home from Ohio all the way back to Raleigh at the time, where my parents were at. And it was just, what's next? What am I going to do with my life? Baseball, for the first time since I had started, was over. I thought it might have been over that last out when I was at Elizabeth City, I had this opportunity. I did everything I could to stay in that situation, but those were out of my hands. But it was a great experience. I wouldn't trade it for anything. So it was kind of one of those things on the way home is what do I do next? I have a teaching degree. I have no job. I have nowhere to live because I didn't want to live back in Raleigh because I had no one. My family was there, but my friends, my girlfriend, who's my now wife, was back in Bertie. So I was like, here we go. It's time to make some decisions. So on that, 12-hour journey back to the house, it was gut check time.
Yeah, a lot of reflecting and what's the next step?
So I get home, and it's funny how God has a way of just paving your life, and you have no idea what's going on. He's working all the magic behind you, and you're just constantly wanting to know what's next, and in a big hurry. So I get home, and one of my best friends calls me up, and he's like, "Hey man, I have a job flipping houses." And I'm sitting there thinking, I don't know anything about hammer and nails, but I can throw away some trash if I need to. So he and I start working for this guy, and we're literally tearing down walls and doing things I don't know about, but grunt work, I guess, is what you can say. But come to find out, he was a board member at Lawrence Academy, which was a private school there in Bertie County. And he and I, we worked daily, and we would just kind of talk, just about certain things. And, he was like in conversation one day, and we started talking about baseball, and he was like, "Hey man, we're actually looking for a baseball coach at Lawrence Academy." And I was like, wow, I've always wanted to be, I think ever since like the 8th grade, I always wanted to be a teacher. But once I started to get into sports, those were the people in my life, my coaches, who made the biggest impact on my life. So I thought, hey, this is something maybe I can do in return, is help kids, not only become better athletes, student athletes, but better people in general. So one day I'll never forget, we were on the roof of this house. It was probably 150 degrees, and we're putting tar on this tin roof. And he pulls up in his truck, and he says, "Robert, the headmaster at Lawrence Academy would like to interview you right now." And I'll never forget, I'm wearing these athletic shorts and a wife beater. Those were pretty cool back in the early, I guess, 2000s. And, I'm hot, nasty, stinking. And I was like, all right, well, let me go home, he said, "No, you've got to come now." And I thought, there's no way. Like, what are you talking about? Look at me. Who would hire me right now, the way I look and the way I smell, probably. So he didn't care. I didn't, even though I was from Bertie County, I really didn't know where Lawrence Academy was. So we ride up there together, and I meet the headmaster, and I'm sitting there thinking the whole time, what am I doing sitting in this car or sitting in this guy's office looking like trash, really just a blue collar hard worker out in the sun all day. And lo and behold, he offers me a job, teaching, assistant athletic director, and coaching 3 sports, varsity baseball being one of them. And, I humbly took the job, and, that was one of the best decisions I ever made in my life. I don't think that I even gave it any thought. I think once he put that contract in front of me and offered me the job, I probably wrote my name twice. I was so excited. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of how that started. I was at Lawrence Academy for 11 years. And, I think before I got there, they had lost in the semifinal game the year before and had a really good team. So I kind of inherited, first of all, they were traditionally good anyway from many years back. And then coming off that Final Four appearance, they had a really good team, a young team at that. So I was very excited. I actually got one of my best friends to help me coach. He was actually my roommate at the time. His name's Tom Hoggard. And we, once baseball season hit, God, I was living in his house. We were roommates, and he had this kitchen, and it was just long and narrow. It was the oddest shaped kitchen or dining room set that I can think of. And we would just sit in there for hours at a time and just draw out practice plans and how we were going to do things. And we would, to this day, he's probably one of the best assistant coaches I ever had because, what I like or what I really cherish in an assistant coach is someone who doesn't always just say yes. Let's think about, what could happen if we do X, Y, Z. Let's argue about it. And we would. I felt like he and I were a great combination because we were always prepared no matter what. And that came from the hours that we put in sitting in his kitchen dining room, just discussing, every possible scenario, whether it's, who's coming in to pitch in the fifth inning if we're down by 2 or if we're up by 3 or whatever it may be. So we knew walking into every game what our plan was. That first year was amazing. We made it to the state championship game. We beat Rocky Mount Academy to advance to the state championship, a team that we had split with earlier in the year. And I think both games were one-run games in the regular season. So, when we saw them in the semifinals, we knew it was going to be a dogfight. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, and it's been a while, I think we beat them by 2 runs that game and just really played gutsy baseball. Advanced to the state finals against Waccamaw Academy, who had Robbie Allen was the head coach. I'm sure you know Robbie, who's down there at Brunswick Community College, and he's done great things down there. Winning just follows him wherever he's at. But he had his first 5 guys were all D1 commits or already signees. So, we were going, it was David versus Goliath for sure. And, we go out there and I think we lost that first game 9-6. I think we kind of took them by surprise. Very respectable game. Came back the next day and it was a 1-0 ball game going into the 5th inning. And then we ran out of pitching. Matter of fact, your brother-in-law, one of my favorite players that I ever coached, Jacob, who's the head coach at Gates County High School, I think he pitched in that game. And I don't know, before I could get him out of there, he probably already gave up 7 or 8 runs. So the wheels fell off for sure. So we ended up losing in the state championship that first year. But, I was 22 years old when I took that job, 23 when baseball season started. And I had no idea. I knew a little bit about baseball. I didn't know how to coach. I took what I had learned and tried to put some stuff together. But we were out there just having fun doing baseball. Just trying to put the best plan together to be as successful as possible. And that was kind of the mentality of the first couple of years. And we ended up going to the state championship. The next 2 years, we unfortunately lost to Waccamaw again the next year. Which was a dramatic finish. We actually we showed up to Fleming Stadium, and they had a pitcher by the name of Dustin Williamson, who I think was a Clemson commit or signee, but never played at Clemson. Left-handed pitcher, man, he was so good. He was mid-80s. He had good stuff, but he hid the ball. You never saw the ball until it was halfway to the plate. He could hide the ball so well. So he slated the pitch game 1. And I can remember Tom and I in the dugout actually having an argument, which was good. I loved it. Nothing where it was detrimental, but it was, just bouncing ideas off one another and a good argument. And I wanted to throw a freshman who had pitched well for us all year. And he's going at me like, you want to throw a freshman against Dustin Williamson in game 1 of the state championship. And my theory was, if we throw our best pitcher, we're going to lose this game anyway. So let's save our best for the next 2 because we knew what they had left. So he didn't want to do it. But head coaches make the decisions. We lost that game 1-0. They actually had back-to-back doubles. I think it was like the fourth inning or something like that. We lost that game 1-0. So that freshman pitcher earned his stripes that night for sure. We won the next game, and then unfortunately, game 3 they beat us again to win the state championship that second year. So year 3 rolls around, new faces, same I guess idea, same mindset. It's time to win one now. We've been there twice. Let's finally win one. And we get there, and it's not easy. It's not as easy as people think, no matter what level you're at. And we get to the state championship, and we're playing Wayne Country Day. And a good friend of mine, Michael Taylor, was the head coach. He had a senior heavy team, and they beat us 2 games to 1 to claim their first ever state championship. So it was 3 years, 3 state championship appearances, and no wins. So it's kind of one of those things where it's like, okay, what are we doing that's not working? Why are we getting there and not winning? We're good enough to win, but we're not winning. So that summer going into that 4th year, it was gut check time. It was, if for a coach, it was like, I'd had enough. I think I hate losing more than I love winning. So I really dug deep, tried to figure out what it is that can get us over that hump. So we really amped up our schedule that year. We had a good team. We were young. We had a lot of kids who were freshmen that started for us. No, let me take that back. We had a lot of kids that were 8th graders and freshmen that started for us, and they were all coming back. So, we really amped up our schedule and played, Greenbrier Christian Academy out of Chesapeake, Virginia, which is, regionally, nationally ranked. We played Atlantic Christian, who was right next door to them. We played teams from out of state that we never heard of, and they would come to Lawrence Academy, little Lawrence Academy, and they'd whip up on us. And we would try to pack in as many games as possible, because I felt like when we were at the state championship, you would play Friday night, and then you would play 2 games if necessary on Saturday. And I felt like we were just spent. By that time, if there was a game 3, I just felt like the guys were drained. So I thought that one way we could do it was, let's play as many games as we possibly can. Let's cram our schedule. We had an administration that, as long as academics were the number one focus at the school, they didn't care how many games we played. As long as kids were doing what they needed to do in the classroom. We had a parent body. Our parents were big supporters of what we were doing, and they loved baseball. The kids loved baseball. So I think that 3rd year we played somewhere around 27, 28 games. And when we got to the state championship, man, by the time game 1, game 2, we were fresh. We weren't tired. Our bodies weren't tired. We were rolling, and we actually saw the adverse effect on the opponents. They looked tired. They looked sore. So that 4th year as a head coach, we actually defeated Waccamaw Academy, and we swept them 2 games to none. And then from that point on, we went on a run that was incredible. We kept the same mindset. We played as many games, as many opponents, as many tough opponents as we possibly could, and we ended up winning the next 6 state championships. And it was incredible. There were times where, I had my doubts as a coach. You come up and you just never know, injuries, eligibility, whatever it may be. Anything can tear you off that track. But we had guys that were just gritty, that they wanted to win so badly that they would do it at all cost. And, we went on a tear that was just unbelievable. And man, as a coach, if someone would have told me, your first 9 years as a head coach, you go to 9 straight state championships. I'd have thought, no way, who does that? That's impossible.
Yeah, that's a
That's a
dream right
dream right
there.
there. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people don't even get there once, or don't even win one. So I just, I was lucky, man. I was blessed to have that situation where the school supported athletics. The parents were all about what they, all about baseball, and the kids. I mean, the kids I coached were small town kids. They did two things or three things. They played baseball, they fish, and they hunt. And I always told them, I would never get in the way of your hunting and fishing as long as you gave me baseball when it was baseball time. And that's what they did, man. I mean, I owe them all the credit.
Yeah, without a doubt, man. All of those experiences, you talked about you dabbled in some independent ball. You started coaching at 22 years old, 23 years old, your first season when spring comes around, 9 straight state championship appearances, you 6 titles. How how have those all of those experiences evolved you as a coach from, what'd you do well at 22, what'd you mess up at 22, and how have all of those experiences and those personalities of those teams, what sticks out through the years that has molded you into like where you're at right now?
Yeah, I think coaches, are all the same in the sense of, you learn from, this coach you had in high school, this coach you had in college, this coach you had in the pros, or this coach you had in the rec league, or whatever it may be, and you just take all of those ideas that you heard and learned over the year, and you kind of just create your own philosophy, your own culture. What is it that you do? Some coaches might be good at XYZ where you can't do XYZ. So I think it was just a matter of figuring out what it is I can do as a coach and make it work. So, 22, 23 years old, I'm coming in, I'm kind of like a little hot shot. You know, you know, I was a pretty good athlete, won multiple awards as an athlete in high school and college. So, I'm gonna come in there and I'm gonna tell you how it's supposed to be done because this is the way I did it. But that's not the case. Those were kind of some of the things I did early in my career. You know, and I'm gonna tell you, stories of, of me hitting a game-winning home run or this, and then I slowly realized, the kids love those stories and they're fun, but they don't want to hear it because it doesn't do them any good. So very quickly, I realized, hey, you know what? This isn't about you anymore. This is about these guys here. Um, they want to take what and become the best they can possibly be. So for me, very quickly, it was like, okay, time to stop living that dream. Got to let it go. I'm in a new role now. Let's make it work and let's win ball games. So I think I evolved in that aspect pretty quickly, and then over the years, it's just been, clinics, books, videos. You and I, and Jacob, we went to the ABCA in Nashville. Man, shucks, what was that? 6 years ago, 6, 7 years ago, I
Yeah, I
guess.
think that was like 2016.
Yeah. I had a great time. But you just learn so much, man. I feel like it's almost too much information. And then you want to go to this, you want to go to that, but they're offered at the same time. So what do? It's tough. But I just think it's just you're forever evolving as a coach. I feel like, and if you're not, I think that's when it's time to stop. You evolve, you learn daily. I mean, I was reading stuff the other day, and I'm just like, wow, yeah, that'll definitely work in our program. So we can definitely do that. So I'm always looking for new ideas, new things to do. So yeah, I mean, I think evolution as a coach is a must. Adaptability is a must, because you're not always going to have the same players. I can teach whatever aspect of a game this year, but it might not work 2 years from now. You've got to be willing to adapt.
Yeah, you touched on something that said, when you mentioned players didn't really care about what you did when you played, and you know you did it this way and it worked for you, and it allowed you to be a very skilled and successful athlete when you played. But I see a lot of stuff on social media and on Twitter where um, there's this war between former big leaguers and hitting coaches and stuff now, and they're like, you're ruining young kids' swings because you're teaching X, Y, Z or whatever. But I played in the big leagues for 7 or 8 years, so I know everything, and I would teach it this way because that's how it was taught to me. So that's how you should teach it, and I think a lot of kids, like, they get lost in that, who do I listen to, like, and I think it's your experience as a player is definitely important, because you got to be able to relate to the kids, and you got to be able to relate to what it feels like standing in the box, and the heart rate and the heartbeat of the game and things like that. But what you mentioned is, your teams are different every year. If you're not growing, you're dying. I mean, nobody's staying the same. So the ABCA that you brought up, man, you're right. You learn so much information. You feel like you want to go right back to school and forget everything you were doing and implement all these new ideas right away. And you almost get overwhelmed, and you have to kind of slow down a little bit and try to pick like one or two things that you can implement this year. And maybe you, over the summer, you evaluate and say, all right, what are some of these other things I learned we can add to the program, next fall, and develop it and intertwine it into what's already working for us and make us better. But I think that's the thing, man, especially with kids these days. I mean, it's 2022. Today's kids aren't exactly the same kids that you were coaching, a decade ago. They're not the same personalities, and they don't grow up with the same resources like when you were coaching myself and when you were coaching Jacob and stuff like that. Like, I grew up with the 100 at bats playing wiffle ball on the weekend, but I don't know how often you get that kid who learned to play the game that way, and bringing that into like the private school aspect of coaching high school baseball. Because I'm familiar with how it works at the public school, at the high school. You got the 9 through 12. Your typical JV program is 9th and 10th graders, with the exceptional underclassmen who may be skilled enough to play and jump right into the varsity game. But when I came through middle school, 7th and 8th graders could play middle school baseball, and that's all it was. We actually had 2 teams at Hertford County Middle School, and we were able to compete against kids our own age. But at a private school, you pretty much have grades 7 through 12. How does that work? What's different about it at the private school compared to like your typical middle school, where those kids kind of stay together, versus at your school, it may be a melting pot of kids who are technically middle school classes, but could be competing against maybe a junior in high school or even a senior in high school in some cases?
Yeah, that's a great question, man. At Lawrence Academy, and then even now at Parrott Academy, it has its pros and it has its cons. The cons are obviously, hey, I've got this 8th grade, 7th grade kid who I can see the potential in him, but I can't put him in the box against a senior lefty who's throwing 88, who's going to Wilmington next year, or can I? So, very early on in my career, I couldn't grasp the fact of there's no way that these kids can compete at that level. But then when you think about it at a private school, being at Lawrence, being at Parrott, we don't have middle school baseball teams. We either have JV for 7th, 8th, and 9th, and varsity for 10, 11, 12. Well, we don't have middle school fields. So, those 7th graders and maybe even some of those 8th graders are playing on those 90-foot bases for the first time. I know for a fact in a month from now, when we start practice, our junior varsity team are going to have a slew of 7th graders who have never seen or never played baseball on a 90-foot field before. So this is going to be their first time. So, early on when I was at Lawrence, I thought, well, shucks, this kid who's an 8th grader is honestly just as good as this kid who's a 10th grader. Why not? So one of the first kids I brought up was Chad Whitehead, who who was an 8th grade catcher for me, starting catcher on a team that had just lost 2 state championships. And, he actually worked behind Jacob because Jacob was our starting catcher until I noticed, yeah, Chad might be better than Jacob behind the plate. So let's put Jacob back in his comfortable spot at second base. Let's put Chad behind the plate and let's see how this works. So I had Chad. I had another kid by the name of Evan Holton who played shortstop for me, and they were good, and you could see they were going to be really good. And I just figured, age was just a number. Let me put them in the box against these guys who are worthy opponents, who are going to be Division I, Division II baseball players, and let's let them get eaten up. So by the time they are midway through their freshman year and moving forward, they crush it, they kill it. But obviously that comes with how you train them, how you practice, and what you prepare them for in practice. But man, I had early on we had numerous kids who came on at Lawrence and jumped in those roles, and man, they succeeded big time. They would start as 8th graders, or they would spot start here and there as 8th graders, and then midway through their 9th grade year, or even coming into their 9th grade year, they're everyday players, every inning players. So same thing at Parrott Academy. The year COVID hit, I had a young man who, little guy in size, catcher. Garrett Bird is his name. I don't mind saying his name. Anyway, I reached out to his mom and dad, and I was like, look, you got to trust me on this. He is the best player, or he is the best catcher in our program right now. 7th grade or not, he's the best catcher. I mean, fundamentally, he had it. He's got a big IQ, baseball IQ. I've been here, done that before. So let's make it work. Well, unfortunately, we played 3 games due to COVID that year. So the following year, we pull up, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 8th graders. Same conversations with the parents. The parents definitely were on board for it. And, it's one of those conversations where, look, I want your son to play varsity baseball with us this year rather than JV. In JV, yes, he will play every inning, probably win an award at the athletic banquet. But the experience that he'll gain and practice every day in games, I'm not going to pull a kid up unless he's going to play the same amount of innings he would as if he played every inning on a JV schedule. I just don't. I believe that they get better in practice. I believe they get an opportunity every day in practice, but they still need that game speed, that game management. They just need game settings. So last year, we had 4 8th graders that played almost every inning of every ball game that we had, and responded well. But there were times where, they're in the box and, we're playing High Point Christian out of the High Point area, who year in, year out is just loaded. And, here they come in there with, 90-mile-an-hour fastballs, and it just blows right by them. As a coach, I don't get mad, every once in a while, what am I doing wrong, coach? Nothing. You're 12, that kid's 18, chill out, stop asking me what's wrong with your swing when you're swinging, when the catcher has the ball in his mitt. Everything's going to be fine. Just give it time. So, here we are now where those kids are 9th graders, and we're out there at off-season workouts, and they're out there carrying themselves like they're juniors. And then I see it happening all over again, just like we did when we were at Lawrence. So I get excited about that, because I'm like, yes, these kids had the same grit, the same mentality as the kids I did early in my coaching career, where they wanted to learn, they wanted to play, they wanted to compete, they had the grit, they had the dog in them. So now I start to get excited. now I'll start getting mad at them. Now they'll be pushed to the limit, and then they'll just grow. So I'm very excited about that opportunity. But I think, I think it's actually a good thing, man. We have a good group of seventh and eighth graders that'll play JV baseball this year, and they're playing on that big field. Whereas, a majority of those middle school kids are still playing on smaller fields. So there is an advantage to it. It's funny. You watch them throw that ball down to second base, and it's like, ooh, when's it going to get there? But they learn the field, they learn to throw. They automatically know in order to get it there, I'm going to have to throw harder. So what do I have to do to throw harder? So they're adapting to the field. I just feel like, there is an advantage to where we can have, seventh and eighth grade competing at a JV level. And we play public schools at the JV level. And they'll come in and, most of the time they beat us. But you can, it's the end result, and I'm constantly telling our coaches and our players, it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. Everyone says it, but you got to believe it. Because if not, that's when kids will just get down on themselves, and that you'll see them quit and or give up on their teammates or themselves or whatever it may be. You just got to be patient and let them see those results a little bit later.
Yeah, I think failure is definitely necessary to grow. And you're talking about seventh, eighth grade kids. Sometimes first time they're on the big field, so they're probably not used to being like a smaller fish in the big pond. They're used to being able to compete on 60-foot bases or whatever, 55, 80-foot bases, whatever it is they're playing at 13U. But then you throw them right into seventh and eighth grade. Hey, here's 60-foot 6-inch mound, here's the 90-foot bases, and that throw from catcher to second, it looks like it's going to be a long toss to the outfield. But
Yeah.
how do you help those kids who may be experiencing a little bit of failure for the first time in their baseball career? How do you keep them focused on, it's not necessarily about where you're at right now, and maybe you're not even winning against those public school JV programs, but playing good competition and learning through these experiences. How do you help them see the big picture of, man, by the time you're a 9th or 10th grader, it's going to seem like you're an upperclassman because you've been through it, you've experienced it, and you've grown. How do you keep them focused on, failing forward versus getting so frustrated and maybe getting too down on themselves?
Yeah, for sure. Another great question. We have a little sign out there in our batting cage area that probably every baseball coach or every coach in America has, and it just says 1% today, and that's our goal, is getting better by 1% every day, every time you come on the field. So we take those guys and really try to develop their strengths. Okay, this is what you can do. So let's focus on that. Let's really build those up to the best of our abilities, and then we work backwards to their weaknesses. Okay, this is, and I know that sounds a little different and a little backwards, but if you start allowing them to do things that they do good, they'll see more results quicker. All right, you might not, if you're a catcher and you can't block the ball, but hey, you have a heck of an arm. Let's use that arm more often. Throw behind runners. Do whatever it is you can to show that arm off. And then in the meantime, we'll work on you blocking balls. But we also have boards in our dugout and stuff like that. And every once in a while, I like to draw a map where it's kind of, it's not a steady incline. You go up, you kind of plateau, you fall a little bit, you go up some more, you plateau, you fall a little bit. Just to remind them, I don't know if you know who Jeremy Boone is. He works with professional athletes. I listened to him speak one time, and he was awesome. And he was like, as a player, wanting to be whatever it is you wanted to be as a player, it's not a menu. You don't just get to open up the menu and say, yeah, that's what I want to be right there. It's a map. You've got to go through X, Y, Z to get to where you want to be, and it's not always easy. So we try to really stress that. It's these times where it's hard are hard for a reason, because these failures are ultimately going to lead to your success. And then I think, also too is, by us having guys who have done it before, when we practice, most of the time we're out there together, whether we're practicing together or not. I have those seventh graders who can barely throw a ball down to second base, but there's my ninth grader who was in the same position you were 2 years ago, who's throwing darts to second base. Look at what he's doing now. You were, whether they were or not, I'll tell you, you were actually better than he was 2 years ago. They don't need to know any better. And then when they see what that kid's doing and how hard he's working, they start to trust it. So I think, there's so many things that you can do for kids. And I think gaining their trust is one of them. It's just, it's not easy though, because, you do have background noise and it is more prevalent now than it ever has been. I'm getting ready to enter my 18th year as a head coach, and it gets harder and harder to be a coach, because it's now all about, me. And I don't think the kids build that on their own. I think it's embedded in their head from home, from their 55 specialist coaches that they have. It makes it tough to build a program and continue to have a strong program when kids have too many people in the ear telling them things that are not real. So, I work really hard to build those player-coach relationships, and they're all individualized. I don't treat every kid the same. Every kid gets the same amount of respect, but, I don't treat them all the same. They're similar, but they're not the same. But the one thing that I do is I try to gain their trust and let them know that, there's light at the end of the tunnel. You just have to be willing to go through the darkness first.
Yeah, without a doubt, man. That's we got Robert Kravitz with us, who is currently at Parrott Academy in Kinston, and he's just talking to us about how he is giving young kids an opportunity in the private school level from 7th to 12th grade, basically helping those guys grow in the game of baseball by giving them a fair shot to improve their skills, whether they're a 7th grader who needs to be thrown right into the mix in a varsity game. It sounds like, man, you're doing a good thing for kids, and high water raises all ships. You mentioned look at this 9th grader over here who worked hard for 2 years, and look where he is when you're talking to that new 7th grader. And it's kind of like, if everybody's pulling on the same end of the rope, they're all headed in the right direction. Like, he can see his hard work paid off, and he can see the fruition that came from it. So it seems like they can motivate each other a little bit when they're all working together outside like that at the same time within your environment.
Yeah. And we man, being, we're a private school. We're a 3A private school where 4A is the biggest. So we are a larger private school, but we're still small. Our student body is 660 kids, where we have 212, 210 in high school, another 180 in middle school. So we're still small. So these kids see each other all the time. I also depend on those varsity guys to build those relationships with those kids. Because when we do practice together, a lot of people initially, some people don't like it. I love it. We haven't been able to do it like I wish, because of COVID. A part of me is like, man, I can't have these varsity kids getting exposed to a JV kid and us miss a game, or me have one of my starters out and really reconfigure everything. So it hasn't been like I want it to the last couple of years. But when you're working on drills, and I'll just catching, for example, when you're blocking balls, or working on tagging progressions or whatever it may be, I don't care how old you are, it's the same stuff. I'm a big fundamental guy. I love fundamentals, but I think it's most of the game is fundamentals. So if you can do the fundamentals right, then you can be successful. So when we're doing, we call them EDDs, everyday drills, we all jump in. So yeah, I think, when my upperclassmen catchers are working with my 7th grade guys, and I see them teach and coach, that as a coach, makes me happy, because I'm like, okay, that kid is doing his part for the program. he's giving him insight. You know how it is. Sometimes you learn better from your peers anyway. So when I see stuff like that, man, it's awesome. And that's the kind of stuff there too that kind of reassures that you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, because I feel like those kids care enough to where they're going to help share their knowledge and do whatever it is they can to help those younger kids be successful.
Yeah, and I think if you're using your players to teach the other kids, it gives them a little bit of ownership within the program. And if they're learning their skills good enough where they mastered it, I mean, we always talk about you've really mastered an objective or you've mastered a topic when you can teach it to someone else. So I think it makes those guys even better players, and they figure out, well, I didn't even realize I did things this way until I started teaching it to this kid. And then some more light bulbs click, and they become a little bit more confident in their skill set and their ability too. So I think it helps both of them.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah, you become a better teacher uh, by teaching kids. I feel like I become a better coach every day because I'm learning new things, and then I take it out there and I see it work. So yeah, I mean, definitely, I wholeheartedly believe that.
So you mentioned a little bit about kids experiencing the big field for the first time, as a seventh or eighth grader. I'm not sure exactly what rules you guys have to play by, but as a private hitting instructor, I know a lot of my 12U clients, they're sixth grade. They've been swinging their USSSA -10 bat, and they're real comfortable with it. Up in Virginia, sixth, seventh, and eighth graders have to swing drop 3. So, that can be a challenge from them going from the little league bat to the BB core. So what exactly do you guys have to swing as hitters when they're in that seventh and eighth grade age group?
Yeah, so we follow all the National Federation rules. So as a pronounced JV team, they're using those drop 3 BB core bats, and I think it's awesome. It's funny because we'll have kids and their dads come out there and can we use this bat? Like, no, you can use it in some drills we'll do, but you can't use it in the game. But they accept it, they go get it, and it's again one of those things where it's just something else that they have to adapt to. And I think the sooner they get to where they're using it, the better off they'll be. Again, it's going to be one of those things where they fail early to succeed later. It's you come watch one of our JV games, and not many balls are hit to the outfield. Now we'll have some ninth graders who are not at the varsity level that are playing JV that are not bad baseball players, but those seventh graders who play, they're rolling balls shortstop. Even when they do hit one hard, it's a line drive to shortstop or barely over the infield. So it's a big difference for them. But again, I think it's something that they use early, and that'll set them up for success later.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because one thing I try to do with my middle school hitters is I try to get them into bats that are a little bit heavier than they may be comfortable with per se. For example, my sixth graders, I try to get them like, man, try this -8. I've got a couple training bats over here, -8, -5. Let's just see what your bat speed looks like with this -8 and see if you can get a little bit closer as a sixth grader to trying to bridge that gap and maybe get to a -5. And then by the time you're seventh grade, if you want to try to play middle school baseball or whatever, try to get to the -3, because to be honest, man, it's hard to get kids to see maybe I have to grow through some adversity now to benefit more later.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
and sometimes it's not even convincing the kid as much as it is convincing the parents that it's going to benefit your kid in the long run if they kind of start swinging a little bit of a heavier bat, because as you mentioned, when those JV games with your seventh through ninth graders, you know, that drop 3 bat does not care how big you are. It doesn't care if you're ready for it. And you will be a lonely kid out there who is struggling to handle that thing if you wait too long to try to bridge that gap.
Yeah, man, I can remember, when I was in high school, we used drop 5s. And then my freshman years when they transitioned to the drop 3, and I thought, wow, how hard it is to put the barrel on the ball now. So, you almost felt like you had to swing double time just to get used to the bat. So, I feel like if I'd have known that as a player in my time, that would have benefited me. So yeah, I mean, I think anytime, like you said, you put them in those situations where, and honestly too, my whole philosophy on that, weighted bats, weighted balls. If I put a weighted ball in a kid's hand, what's he gonna do? He's automatically, naturally gonna throw harder. He's gonna throw harder. If I put a heavier bat in his hand, he's gonna swing harder. He's eventually gonna get used to it. It might work them a little bit, but they're gonna learn how to use it for sure.
Yeah, without a doubt. Um, if let's move into advice for athletes who are, they have ambitions to play high school varsity baseball. They have ambitions to be a role player. They want to contribute to winning games, not just necessarily be on the team. Which there's nothing wrong with being on the team. Don't get me wrong. A lot of the best memories you'll have are making the team in high school and being around the guys and the bus trips and the memories you make at the practices and the locker room talks and stuff like that. You're definitely going to build some relationships and have fun being on the team. But if you have aspirations to make the high school team and be a role player, try to contribute to winning baseball games, what advice do you have to these guys as they're coming up and maybe they're 12 now or 13 and they want to get to that point, or maybe you even have the kid who is in ninth grade now and he's just not quite physical enough yet to play that big role. Like, what advice do you give those guys?
Yeah, it's funny you ask because you know coming up, like I said, I never played baseball until I was a sophomore in high school. I didn't play right away. Uh, I can remember sitting on the bench and watching some guys play that were on the field while I was in the bench, thinking, like, I know I've never played, but I know I'm better than that kid. So how can I prove it? It was all about, how can I prove it? How can I prove it? If the coach is not going to put me in the game, how can I prove it? Well, the one thing is, I love practice. I think that as a player, I love practice. As a coach, I love practice. So I think definitely, it's funny to me because luckily, knock on wood, I've been blessed to not have parents, issues where they're, in 18, 17 complete seasons as a head coach, I may have had a handful of parents that ever really complained or tried to pick battles with me over playing time or whatever it may be. Uh, and one of the things they would say is, my son never gets an opportunity. Your son gets an opportunity every day at practice. So I think that players really need to buy in to practice and understand the value in that. I, I think that today we have too many kids, baseball, basketball, football, whatever it may be, soccer, I don't know, that think just because they do lessons or because they play on a travel ball team or whatever it may be, that's all it is. I have kids that play travel baseball, and I'm probably uh, I'll probably be shunned for this, but I'm not a travel ball guy. I don't. There's not many programs that I believe in when it comes to travel ball. Just from my experience, I know guys that coach it. I know kids that play it, and I hear what I hear from it. I, I don't agree with. But I think that when it comes to school baseball, that kids really need to buy into. They need to buy into practice, and they really need to self reflect. As a player, I noticed what it is that I could do good. I noticed what it was that I had to get better at. So as a player, in middle school, or whether you're sixth, seventh grader, or 12th grader, what is it that you recognize that needs to become better in order to play to actually get some playing time? Figure out what it is and work at it. You you're not going to become a better hitter by coming to practice, going through your routine, and leaving as soon as coach says, "All right, it's time to go." You know, what are you doing after practice? When everyone else is leaving, all the kids that start, they're gone. All their buddies, all the kids that don't really care, they're gone. What are you doing? So when kids, you know, say or mention or breathe I'll never get to play. Why don't I get to play? What are you doing to play? That's the question. And that's kind of the question I throw back at kids, that do ask me, because I do. I mean, every year I'm going to have one or two kids, coach, what can I do to play more? What are you doing to play more? You know, we have off season workouts. We'll have, 8-9 weeks of off season work, and you came to 2 days. So what is it that you're doing? Because you're not doing your part. We're here. I'm here. You have to do what it is that whatever it takes in order to play. If not, you have no argument. And that's kind of the way I look at it. But for those kids, I think I'm anti travel ball, and I am pro uh, lessons. I think what you do with kids is awesome. I know you personally, so I know what you do works. I know what you're teaching them works. I know that you have interest in the kids becoming better, and I know that's what they need. I had a kid a few years ago, my first year at Parrot, who had a pitching coach and a hitting coach, and he was terrible at both. And I was like sitting there thinking the whole time, what are your mom and dad paying for? Like, do they not see that this is a waste of money, or is it just a service? You know what I mean? Or are we just trying to figure out, uh, we need some alone time. Here's an hour. Here's $50. Take my kid. I'll come back in an hour. So it's, there too much information uh, that come from these people. It's sometimes a bad thing. Um, multiple hitting coaches, multiple pitching coaches. Find a guy, find a Brandon Matthews that's out there, that's willing to work with kids, do it the right way, become better, get your skills polished, uh, bust your tail at practice, and you'll start to see results. I mean, there's no way you can't. I mean, that is a formula for success that's been since the beginning of time, and I don't think that's ever going to change.
Yeah, you just mentioned on a couple of things I want to piggyback on, and one of them is you talking about the kid who's like, what can I do to get more playing time, and things of that nature. You brought up off-season workouts, which I'm pretty familiar with. Being a former high school baseball coach, in public school, we don't get paid until the season starts when I was doing it. So we got a little stipend, but that stipend didn't kick in until February. So you're talking about February, March, April, and then I get my last check in May. And if we do anything when school starts in September all the way through December, leading up to Christmas break, that's basically us volunteering our time as a coach.
Yeah.
And 4 days a week we were doing it, 90 minutes a day. I'm like, if I'm putting in an hour and a half every day from September to December, you're not playing soccer, you're not playing football, you're not busy with a current sport. I think you at least owe me to come out here and put in time with it as well. If you're going to ask me the question in the spring, what do I need to do to play? And be like, well, where have you been? And, just like
Yeah.
you said. But one of those things, when you mentioned that, it brought up something. I was listening to a podcast last night. Chaz Pippett had a Duke University player on his podcast for Baseball Rebellion. And it's funny, if you look at his career, he redshirts his freshman year and doesn't play a significant role. His second year, he gets limited time, and, COVID hits. But long story short, basically, he had a very low role when he came into the program. He was a 35th guy as a walk-on. The funny thing is, he got drafted out of high school, so he's a pretty good athlete. But he told you on the podcast, he's like, man, I knew I was the 35th guy on the roster, and he's like, my defense was really good, but I couldn't hit good enough to hit ACC pitching. But he made a comment, and he talked about how he tried to basically work while he was waiting and show up every day at practice and be somebody that people wanted to be around.
Mhm.
Be somebody coaches wanted to have around, be somebody at practice that, pushed his teammates to do well. And he tried to do as much as he could to, you know, continue being a really good defender and be really good at practice to play a significant role and show off what he could do. But he really said, "Hey, I knew I needed to become a better hitter, so I had to put in the time that it took to be a better hitter. I had to go out and find out, work with my coaches, improve my hitting." He's like, and honestly, I was small when I came into college. I had to get bigger. I had to gain a little bit of weight. I had to find the weight room consistently. So he's really pointed out that he had to be deliberate with his methods and with his practice and with his training. But he could have easily said, "Man, I got drafted out of high school. I don't know why I'm the 35th guy and I'm not playing." He could have had the wrong attitude about it, but he really said, "Look, coaches got to want to be around me. My teammates got to want to be around me. I got to be a guy that they want to have in the program, and I can work hard to do that. And I can also just be a good person who puts my nose down and works while I wait and just digs in the dirt and puts in my time." And now he's a significant everyday player in the infield for them and has a goal to try to win the batting title. But I wanted to point out that, a lot of kids miss that. They miss that opportunity that if you just put the work in and you're coachable, you're likable, you're doing the right things, like you might have a shot. But if you don't ever go that route, you never know what might be.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we have a guy on staff who is a PE teacher. He's an assistant football coach, coaches JV basketball for us, coaches lacrosse out of necessity. Played football at North Carolina A&T. Great guy, young guy. He's getting into coaching, and he and I have had conversations again and again. And it's one of those things where he's 26. I just turned 40 this year, and it just you can tell he's a young coach. He's doing all the right things. But I learned from him in a conversation that we had, to this point, where he made a comment that never really dawned on me, I guess. I'm not sure that I ever heard it, and I'm sure millions of people have probably heard it. But he made a comment. He said, "Everybody's given the same 24 hours in a day. What do you do with yours?" And I thought, man, that's it. That's it. I love that. So I mean, you're absolutely right. No matter what and what level you're at, you have an opportunity there. You're always, most of the times, hopefully most of the times, you're going to have coaches that are willing to help out in whatever ways they possibly can. But it's up to you as a player to take advantage of that. The one thing that I love about Parrott and where I'm at and being a private school is, my guys that play baseball play multiple sports. I'm a multiple sports guy. I played football when I was in high school. So there's the risk of injury, sure, but if it's not significant, they're always back by baseball season anyway. I'm more scared of
Yeah.
basketball than I am football. But man, we have such an outstanding athletics program, and our athletic director Matt Beeman does an excellent job. He's also our football coach. But man, we upgraded our entire school my first year. I think it was my first couple years at Parrott, where school did an excellent job of raising money to add on some new buildings and extend some buildings. And man, one of the things they did is they built a field house with a state of the art weight room. And ever since that came into existence 5 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, man, our kids have bought into it. And I can remember early in my coaching career, like you said, unfortunately for me, our coaching was included in our salary. So you were kind of always being paid as a coach, but you never really saw the benefits of it, as far as an extra check or anything else like that. So, whatever, I'd have done it for free, still would. But you spend those hours and hours and hours after school, and you're in the weight room, you're on the field, you're doing whatever. Um, but at Parrot, man, like I said, I have so many kids that play multiple sports, and most of them play football. And we have a weightlifting class in which we have a guy that does an excellent job in there. So, man, I tell you, like, we really ramp up our baseball at the very beginning of January. During that fall, 100% of my guys are in the weight room, and I'm just like, this is awesome. Like, you're telling me my guys are getting better, and I can come home to my family. Like, sign me up for that.
Yeah.
We do some things sparingly in the fall, uh, but nothing outrageous, because honestly, like, I have a bunch of guys that are just finishing up, and I want them to rest. But most of the stuff, just what I did anyway in the fall was all let's get stronger. So now that burden has kind of been lifted off my shoulders, and I love it, man. It's the greatest thing ever. So in the fall, and you see these guys, you can actually start to see them bulk up, tone up, and it's like, yes, keep getting it. So I love that. So we start baseball, January 2nd, 3rd, whenever we come back from Christmas, and we go hard at it until baseball season actually starts. But man, that's such a blessing to have, and I have coaches that I work with and that believe in it, so they push it, they pump it, and I get to reap the benefits from it. So I love it.
Yeah, that's definitely beneficial. I mean, you're talking about, you got somebody you can trust to develop your guys in the weight room. Your athletes are playing multiple sports, so they're staying active. They're becoming more athletic, learning, different mobility and motor learning skills with those other sports. So that's definitely something that a lot of coaches could appreciate. I mean, I know
Yeah,
at a lot of programs where, you know, high school baseball coaches have to wear so many different hats,
yeah,
and sometimes you can put in so many hours that you almost get a little bit overwhelmed. But I know coaches are usually the first people at the ballpark. They're the first people at the field, the stadium, the venue. They're usually the last ones to leave. And when you're talking about, you really spend more time with other people's kids than you often spend time with your own. And that's just the realistic view of being a coach. And it takes special people to do it. I want to bring up one thing and kind of get your opinion on this. I know some things that other people have said, and I know what my thoughts are on it. But you know, there's there's the kid out there who, we were talking about, earning your stripes and trying to, the kid who has aspirations to play high school varsity baseball, and what can I do to get better. But you've got this kid who, he's a really good kid, stays out of trouble, responsible, does the right things at school, shows up to practice every day, but I don't think it doesn't necessarily get him on the field.
yeah,
But there's a lot of people who think, "Hey, my son never missed a practice. He's got good grades in school. He's very, respectable. He's a really good young man." And I'm not saying we definitely we want those kids. We want all of our kids in our program to be that way and to be described that way. Um, but just because you're a good person doesn't necessarily earn you playing time.
yeah, absolutely. That's tough, man. That's real tough, actually. Um, it's kind of one of those things where, um, you know, I like to think that I'm a good person. You know, I became a better student the older I got. Um, but I couldn't go into med school, and my mom and dad say he needs to cut somebody open. We need to see him at work. So you know you're absolutely right. I want all my kids to be that. And you're all, as a coach, you're always going to see the classic case of kids who have all the talent in the world, have no work ethic, or kids who have zero talent and all the work ethic. And it's just like, how come we can't combine all this? Let's put it in the pot, stir it up, and let's distribute some of this. But when I think of that, I think of kids. I try to instantly start thinking of kids that I've coached in the past, and how I treated those situations. But it's one of those things where I, within the last couple of years, I realized that, man, I have favorites. I was always that coach or just always, I guess, embedded to believe that you don't have favorites. But I wholeheartedly have favorite players. Now, that doesn't mean I like them any less or anything. It has nothing to do with that. My favorite players are the guys who have that combination of talent and work ethic. Um, I love those guys. They're my favorite players. But I love all my players the same, if that makes any sense at all. But when it comes to a situation like that, I've got little Johnny who's at every practice, good kid, doesn't give me any trouble, honor roll student, whatever it may be. Yeah, you know, when the situation arises, he's probably one of the first kids I try to get in the game uh, when we're getting blown out or we're blowing somebody out. But when it's a 2-2 ball game in the fifth, and I'm needing to make some switches here and there, Johnny doesn't. He's not a part of that equation, and it has nothing to do, with that kid. Earlier you spoke on roles. That's something that we preach from day one. Every single kid on our team has a role. We keep charts after charts after charts. I'm keeping a chart. My two assistant coaches are keeping charts. Players who aren't playing are keeping charts. So everyone's doing something. So little Johnny, who might not get in the game, is playing a very important role for us right now, because I want to know how many times the pitcher's looking to second base when we have a runner on second base, and that's his role. And luckily, we have kids that buy into that. But yeah, I mean, just because you're a good person, that doesn't equate to being a good player. That doesn't put you on the field. But it definitely puts you on the field when the right situation arises. And it's just that situation is different for all role players. I have guys. Man, I had a kid a couple years ago. His parents were great. He was a great kid, smart kid. Shucks, I think he's a dentist now, or in dental school. If he started, he played the outfield. He was average in the outfield at best. He could catch a fly. Nothing was going to get by him. He couldn't throw. But no matter what, depending on situations, if he started, he'd go 0 for 3 every game. I could bet on that. But if I ever brought him off the bench for a pinch hit, he was money. So I quickly realized, this dude's not a starter. This dude is that clutch hit in the fifth inning when we need a run or whatever be the case. And, his mom and dad actually came to me one day and were like, don't let Alex start anymore. And, at first I'm like thinking, what are they talking about? And they're like, he just hits the ball so much better when he doesn't play the field. And I thought, oh yeah, okay, yeah, we're on the same page. So, I mean, everybody's got that role. It's just different for every single kid. But yes, absolutely. If there's a kid that comes to practice, does everything he's supposed to do, yes, when the situation arises, I definitely think of that kid first. But how many kids have I ever coached that have come out to every single workout, have done everything I've asked, never miss a practice, no trouble in school, and play 4 innings all year, several. And that's just something that's never going to change. It is what it is, but, you can see the disappointment. But I think, that's one of those life lessons that parents might not understand. The kid at that time might not understand, but that's just reflection. When I was in the independent league and we were coming out of the hotel and that dude was standing in the lobby and I heard he was a third baseman, there was self-reflection in Robert Kravitz, because I knew I'm probably going home because those other dudes are better than I am. And I knew that, and I could accept that. Did I like it? No, I didn't like it. But I knew it. So I think, when Johnny, who's such a great kid and who's going to make an excellent citizen of the world one day, if he would actually be honest with himself and say, yeah, I don't play because the guy in front of me is better. And that's something too that I tell my guys all the time is, listen, I don't care who you are, where you're from, what you do. 9 best players on today will play. Uh, and the reason why you don't play is because the guy in front of you is better. That's it. That's it. Um, but it is what it is. Uh, you know, luckily I haven't had too many people who complain about that, but you know, it is
Yeah,
they'll play. They'll play
I want
sometime.
to I want to make it clear that it, I don't want to speak for Robert, but I'm pretty sure that he's not saying he wants bad kids on his team or kids who don't go to class or things like that. But we are, and he mentioned it, like if you're doing the right things, you're in the program because you're doing the right things. Like you're
That's
in the
right.
program because you're going to class. You're in the program because you show up every day. You're in the program because you do come to the practices and you add value to our program. And you're that person who's good to be around, and you're going to be a model citizen in the future, and you deserve to be here. Not, but just because you're the good person doesn't necessarily mean you deserve to play, because you don't have the requisite skill set, to jump on
That's
the field at the moment. Not saying you might not have it in the future, but I just wanted to point that out, that for any parents or other coaches or players or whatever who are listening, it doesn't mean you can be a jerk, and because you're a jerk and you're a good baseball player, you're going to play either. It just means that
yeah,
you, like he said, you need to self-reflect and do the things you're supposed to do, and just earn that opportunity to maybe be the best player tomorrow, or be the best player next season, whatever the case may be. And we're about 10 minutes from the 11 o'clock hour, so we're going to start wrapping it up with this last piece. We've talked about how you've evolved as a coach. So a couple of things I want to hit on. You mentioned it a little bit earlier about trying to find the right hitting coaches or coaches outside of practice to take lessons with. I think it's really important that um, instructors communicate with the high school coaches, and I don't think there's enough of that. Pick up the phone, reach out, and figure out. Hey, what are you seeing with this kid every day at practice? What are you seeing with him in your program? This is what I'm seeing with him in private lessons. This is what we've been working on, like that communication piece. Because like you said, you're trying to spend time with your family as a coach, and I know my role. Like I know time is limited when you're a high school coach and you've got maybe 20 athletes. Like it's hard to individualize everybody's training plan every day. So that's where I try to bridge the gap as a private hitting instructor, is I can individualize Johnny's plan. I can give him 1 hour, however often he can come in, and try to make him better. But I don't think we have enough communication between private instructor and high school coach. There's sometimes this unwritten animosity that really doesn't have to be there, and you got to find the right person that you can trust. Like you mentioned, that going to just anybody for a lesson, sometimes it's a transaction, but it's not transformational.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I think that communication is key. It's just, and you're right. It is tough to find time to invest in your players all the time. So yeah, you're a hitting instructor that spends an hour with a kid. You might have a kid that comes in once a month for an hour, and you're not going to gain a lot about that kid. Where I see him every day. Yeah, absolutely, there should be some communication there for sure. And the animosity thing is another good point. There have been times where for me, and that's probably something I'm guilty of. I would never. I'm not going to badmouth anybody, but I'll make comments like, "What are you paying for?" Like that. So, uh, but it's funny to me how so many coaches, individual like hitting coaches or pitching coaches, they played ball at a high level, but but that doesn't always equate to being a good coach or a good instructor or a good communicator. So, I think a lot of people get, they purchase the name. Oh, I'm taking lessons with, Johnny Appleseed, who was a 10-year pro guy and played baseball at such and such, and it's, okay, but I don't see any results from you in the batting cage at all. So let's really rethink what we're doing here. So that's kind of one of those things that I'm definitely guilty of, where I have guys that have hitting coaches or pitching coaches, and I just look at what they do, and I get angry. I'm just like, why do I have to coach you? Then you go away to this dude, and then him just tell you everything totally opposite. Now, I'm not saying that my way is the right way or the wrong way, but it's contradictory. I don't
And
believe.
it doesn't help the kid either, because now
No, no,
he's like,
that's
he's right in the middle, and he's, well, over here I'm listening to this one, and over here I'm listening to that one, and I don't know what to do. I'm just running on this wheel and going in places.
yeah, exactly. That's I have a couple guys that have had taken hitting lessons and pitching lessons where, yeah, that coach or that hitting instructor is teaching the same things that I'm teaching, but yeah, hey, ask him about this, or ask him if he, how he thinks this drill might be more beneficial, uh, whatever it may be. And it's funny too because I'll ask some of those kids, hey, walk me through your workout. When I do personal workouts, I do 1 hour workouts. You do 1 hour workouts.
Yeah.
You're not getting anything out of 30 minutes. So some of these guys, they do 30 minutes. And I'm thinking, heck, in 30 minutes, I don't even know if we swung a bat the first 30 minutes,
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where, okay, so you're basically paying someone to throw you some BB, or catch your bullpen or something like that. So, I automatically start to question, what's really going on there. It's become so much of a business where the door is just a revolving door. Got to get you in, got to get the next guy out, or the next guy in. So in and out, in and out, in and out, and they make that living off their name or their reputation or whatever it may be. So yeah, I mean, I definitely think there should be communication there for sure. But I think it's important for baseball coaches and hitting instructors or personal instructors to bridge that gap. If I send a guy, unfortunately, you live so far away from my guys. If you were 30 minutes down the road, man, I would be like, look, I would tell my guys, the only hit instructor you need is Brandon Matthews. Man, that would make life so much easier. But some of the guys they do have, I don't know, they teach something totally different, and I don't like it, because I feel like I'm fighting an uphill battle because, man, I've had this hitting instructor since I was 8 years old. Okay, well, let's do something that's right and different. But I've also had kids who have had hitting instructors who've been great, who have made my job easier. So I mean, it plays both ways for sure. But
Yeah.
I think the communication piece for sure would be key for both parties. I mean, and honestly, you talk about who benefits from it. The kid,
Yeah.
and ultimately that's the goal.
All right, we're gonna wrap it up with this last segment. Your evolution as a coach. I know there are things that I used to do that I used to think were like, man, I'm gonna do this forever and ever. This is great. It's a drill I'm always gonna do, or I'm gonna run my practices this way, or it could be, I'm always gonna take 3-0. Could be some type of example, but in the last 5 years or so, what is something you don't do anymore that you've kind of gone away from, that you've changed, and something you might have added or something new that you've learned within the last 5 years?
Oh man, something I definitely do not do anymore. Or I do, but do it differently. When I was in college, our coach struggled to find good help. So, excuse me, we would always do something known as mass infield, mass outfield. Pardon me. And anyway, he would take all the infielders, they go to their positions, and everybody else would beat ground balls. Pop, pop. So our infielders, man, over a 15-minute span, could get 200 ground balls. Where, you know, as a catcher, I was hitting ground balls the shortstop, and outfielders were hitting ground balls the first, second, wherever it may be. And the balls are just all over the place, and it was great. And I thought, man, this is fantastic. Like, how can you? This is the best 15 minutes ever. And then we would flip to mass outfield, where we would start hitting fly balls to outfielders. So when I first started coaching, I was like, man, mass infield, mass outfield is a definite, because we are going to get as many reps as possible. And then I think it was probably my fourth or fifth year as a head coach when I started to realize I don't think kids need to be hitting that part of the baseball. And what really opened up my eyes to that was I was at Fleming Stadium. We were getting ready to play in a tournament, and we were playing a team from New Jersey. And the coach took like a rope or string or something, put about 10 wiffle balls up there, tied it to the fence, and he would pull it apart, and then the ball would just come like this, and the kids would hit the top half of the baseball. And I was watching them, and at first I was thinking, that's pretty cool. And then I was like, no, that sucks. Like, that's not good. Like, that's not. And then I instantly thought of mass infield, mass outfield, where I had guys beating ground balls into the ground. And then that's when I kind of started to incorporate all right, we're going to hit the bottom half of the baseball, and we're going to hit it with as much part of the bat we can, and we're going to start letting balls carry. So mass infield is something I definitely don't do anymore. Or when I do it, we set up pitching machines that have nothing but top spin, and kids feed the pitching machines. So we no longer hit ground balls in the dirt. And then something new that I do that I've probably started 3 or 4 years ago, man, like I said, I love practice. I love making a practice plan. I think it's awesome. Like, it's one of my favorite things as a coach. And, it was always, practices were different, but they were very similar in a sense, where we warm up, we stretch, we do more calisthenics, we start throwing, and then we get into XYZ. So what I started doing, and I don't know if this just popped into my head or if I heard it from somebody or whatever. We warm up, we stretch, we do some calisthenics, and then we run bases for about 15 to 20 minutes every single day. Then we jump right into defensive drills that are non-throwing. We have our catchers working, infielders working, corner guys are separated from middle guys, and then our outfielders together. And we haven't thrown a baseball yet, because how many times in practice have you think about it as a player, what did you do? You went out there, you warmed up, you stretched, you started throwing, then you would take batting practice, and then you would take infield, outfield. And then it's like, why is my arm always not feeling good? We weren't having arm issues or anything else like that. I just thought, why are we so quick to jump into our throwing program? And then we stray away from anything throwing for another 45 minutes to an hour. So, the first part of our practices are, like I said, warm up, stretching, calisthenics, get right into base running every single day. Defensive drills that are non-throwing. And then we throw, and then we work on team defense, and kids are throwing bullpens. So, I think that's something that we've done over the last 3 or 4 years that we incorporated, that I think just is smarter. That I like. And then, I also, I've got, started dabbling in a lot of the analytics here lately, hitting wise. So, I'm still learning all that kind of good stuff, but I like it. I enjoy it. It's good to have guys out there that, know what they're talking about, and you learn from it. We use some stuff. We don't use every metric. We don't base everything solely on metrics. But it's something that it's a part of the game now. You can't watch a baseball game without anybody talking about metrics. So it's something that I'm definitely learning more and more about. I just purchased my first Rebel rack. I bought 3 today. So I'm definitely excited about that and learning how to use that. So, and I know people have been using that for the last few years. So I'm definitely pumped up about that and learning more about how to use that and incorporate that as much as possible. So
That's awesome, man. I think that's a testament to, who you are as a person and your willingness to grow. Like you ask your players to grow, you ask your players to be open minded, and you ask them to be, coachable. And I think that shows that you're coachable as a coach. You're willing to learn from other people. You're willing to, implement new ideas and at least try them. And that says a lot about your willingness to try to serve your players in the best possible way.
yeah.
So
You got to be accountable as a coach for sure. If you're going to hold your players accountable, you have to be accountable.
yeah, man. Well, it's after 11. I know you got to get up really early. I got to get up early, but I just want to say, first of all, thanks for jumping on the show. I really appreciate you jumping on. You had a lot of great information. I'm going to try to share some clips coming up. If you guys are watching, this show will be immediately available for replay on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook. There'll be some clips posted out throughout the week of some of the key moments and key pieces of advice from Robert. If you need to reach out to Robert, we'll put his contact info on my website, so you can also check out a replay of the show on YouTube. Just go to my website, bmatthewsbaseball.com. You'll see the Swing Angry Live episode with the full episode that we did tonight with his contact info at the bottom. And I'm sure if you reach out to him, he'll be willing to answer any questions you have. And I know he always helps me whenever I reach out to him, and he'll help you as well. So thanks, Robert.
Brandon,
thanks
I appreciate
for joining
it, man.
Yeah, man. Thanks for joining the show, and we'll catch up with you next time, man.
All right, buddy. Take care.